Zach, I know you were there moments ago when Micah Handlogten announced that he is going to play this season. I feel like following him and his progress has been a little bit of a roller coaster. Gator fans were so excited a couple weeks ago that he was going to play, and then it seemed like he was going to redshirt, but now he's back, and what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, this is a huge development for Florida, something that's kind of been a lingering story potentially for them since he got cleared a couple weeks ago. I asked him actually just now if he thought about returning against number one Auburn, because, of course, that was the team that he suffered the injury against. He said it crossed his mind, but he's really been wanting to get out there with the team, knowing that this is a potential Final Four national championship squad. And I think that the injury that happened on Tuesday night to Alex Condon, who's going to be out 1 to 2 weeks with a sprained ankle, I think that kind of maybe gave him the extra push that he needed. And Todd Golden also revealed that Sam Alexis, another one of their bigs, is going to be out as well. So they need some bodies down there in that front court, and what better guy to plug in there than the number 5 offensive rebounder in the country last year. So getting a 7'1" center back in Micah Handlogten is just a huge development for this Florida basketball team that was already playing at an elite level.
Zach, what do you think this looks like right away when it comes to minutes and how much he is mixed into at least the starting reps when it comes to Handlogten?
Well, I think that he's right now going to be the third guy in that front court rotation. He's not going to start out of the gate, despite being a starter last year. They are going to work him back into it. I think that they feel good, obviously, about Thomas Houck, who's been coming off the bench as kind of like Florida's sixth man, but he's just been playing out of his mind recently. So he's going to step into that starting role at the 4 spot, and Ruben Chinyelu is going to continue to start at center. And then Handlogten will be the first guy that they kind of work in off the bench. I would imagine that as the season, or should I say the rest of the regular season goes, he will continue to play more minutes. I don't know if he will ever maybe start a game this season, especially once Alex Condon comes back. They might not need him to, but he will definitely be somebody that they play in the rotation. And honestly, he's probably going to take some minutes away from somebody in the front court. But for the time being, he's going to fill the void of Condon and Sam Alexis being out.
Zach, I'm nervous that Todd Golden is having so much success that the NBA is going to come calling sooner rather than later, because look at some of these guys that he's been able to find that were not necessarily 5-star guys. And so,
Sure.
Yeah. And so my concern is that he's going to leave at some point sooner rather than later.
That's a good problem to have, I guess.
We've been there before, though, Zach. We've been there before.
You can have him back.
Yeah, and look, that's I don't know Todd's career aspirations other than I just know that he really likes being in Gainesville, and I think that he likes where he's got this Florida basketball program. That's not to say that there's not another job that could take him away from Gainesville. Maybe there's a blue blood out there that would even potentially get him to change jobs at the collegiate level. I don't know that. However, I do think after this season and the run that they could potentially have in March, that he will be due for probably another contract extension. And I would imagine that a lot of the big money boosters at Florida who've already been kind of invested in his program from an NIL standpoint, I think that they're going to be even more invested moving forward. And he should have the resources and be taken care of financially to not necessarily be looking to leave. I just think that it may have to take an NBA organization or a franchise that just really jumps out at him to feel like he wants to make that move. But I don't think that that's anything he's looking to do anytime soon.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, Zach, we were joking about it a little bit earlier in the week because I'm a Bulls fan, and I was like, if you guys want to trade, I'll send Billy Donovan back, and I'll take Todd Golden in Chicago right now. But
I'm a Bulls fan as well, so that would be interesting.
It would. The other day, though, when you're talking about the game that Alex Condon went down, 5 different Florida players scored in double figures in that game. And I think when we talk about this Gator basketball team and the balance and the depth on the bench. I feel like that kind of epitomizes what they've been able to do, especially this last few weeks with knocking down another number one team. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you just look at what they just went through this past week. They beat a number one team on the road for the first time in program history, and then followed that up with another win on the road against a top 25 team, and that's the first time in program history that the Gators have won back-to-back games on the road against ranked opponents. So they just made history twice in a week, and they did that without Elijah Martin in both games, and then without Alex Condon in the second one. And to be able to have Denzel Aberdeen and Thomas Howe, two bench players, step in and, Denzel Aberdeen scored 20 points the other night in Starkville and led the Gators in scoring. And then I don't know if you guys saw, but Thomas Howe put up a stat line that hadn't been done by an SEC player since John Wall at Kentucky.
Wow.
It was like 16 and 9 with 8 assists and then multiple steals and blocks. And nobody had a stat line like that since John Wall. So,
and the SEC wasn't that good back then, Zach. That's the crazy part.
Yeah,
no kidding. You're right. And again, this is a guy that has been coming off the bench for Florida all season. So, I mean, he's probably got a case for sixth man of the year in the SEC. And now, at least for the next week or so, he might be in a starting role with Alex Condon now. And I don't think Florida's going to miss a beat because that's how good they are, and that is how much depth that they have, not just in the backcourt, but in the front court as well.
All right, two gigantic questions for you. One, does Walter Clayton Jr. get enough love nationally? And two, do you think this team could be a Final Four team, especially after what we saw this week?
We'll find out. He was just named to the John Wooden midseason watch list as one of the nation's top 20 players. So, there's some recognition there. I think that he probably hadn't been leading up into this season and maybe even the early part of this year. But I think that it's kind of hard to ignore what he's done. And, the big question mark with him was whether he could play point guard. And he's clearly shown that he can do that. And I think him also having that injury against Tennessee on like a big stage with a lot of media and national folks paying attention to that game, seeing him go out and Florida lose by 20 points, and then him come back against Auburn and lead them to the win against the number one team, probably showed people how much value he has to Florida. So I would hope by the end of the year that should be reflected in, first team All-SEC honors and some All-American consideration. I asked Golden last week if he thought that he was starting to make his case for Player of the Year. I know Janai Broome is the heavy favorite, but Walter's having a pretty special season, and so is the basketball team. Like I totally think that they've got Final Four potential. To be honest, given the fact that they've beaten two number one teams, I don't think people realize that stat came out that said that they're the fifth team that's done that, beat two number one teams in the same season. But they're only the third team that's done that in the regular season. There's only been two other teams that beat two number ones in the regular season. Both of those teams ended up being a number one seed in the NCAA tournament. So Florida's got a chance to be a very high seed. And I think the fact that they've shown that they can beat squads like Auburn and Tennessee tells me that they don't just have Final Four potential. I think that they've got national championship potential. But obviously they got to get healthy and stay healthy once the dance approaches.
Zach, when we zoom out a little bit and we look at the SEC as a whole, there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are saying it could potentially be where 13, 14 of the 16 SEC teams make the tournament, and that just is kind of a testament to how good the Southeastern Conference basketball is playing right now. But when you look at that, I do feel like it credits even more to Lauren's point a second ago, what Florida has been able to do with the schedule and with a team like Auburn, who does sit at number one still, how did you feel about that when they were still ranked one over Florida after the loss?
I asked Todd if he thought that they should be ranked number one, and he said not necessarily. I personally feel like you can make a strong case that they have the best resume to this point. They definitely have the best win of the season. Nobody's got a better win than Florida's win, but at Auburn. But it keeps a chip on their shoulder, I guess. Auburn and Alabama are going to play tomorrow, so that might allow Florida to move up again, depending on how that game goes. And but at the end of the day, for Florida, they just want to be one of the top 4 teams in the country, because that means they're going to be one of the top 4 seeds in the tournament. And I think that they've firmly put themselves in that discussion. Even if they happen to take another loss at some point and maybe drop to 5 or 6, they're going to be consideration for a number 1 seed already with their resume.
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL. For even more great content like this, be sure to subscribe and like the 1010XL channel.